Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining this session on, build the perfect digital assistant for your business. My name is Rodney Sorirono, and I'll be joining with Barry Hearn. He is from the Oracle Digital Assistant Product Management Group, and myself, I'm from the Business Development Group, taking care of, innovation platform. Now, today, right? If as we have we have been been locked up in the pandemic for quite some time, and now we see that people are going back to the office, and I think majority of you are going back to the office as well, and already starting to plan your holidays as well. And I'm actually very fan of traveling to Japan, and I saw that Japan also is actually opening up as well for visitors. And I was watching a new report about Japan reopening and how things have changed actually in the last 2.5 years. And one of the convenience store chains there, like Family Mart, they're actually rolling out unmanned stores, right? And actually to address this, and they will be opening up to about 1,000 unmanned stores in Japan. Now, you can see that innovation is really accelerating, right? So, and you can see that analysts are saying the same. When, according to the market survey, right, 81% of senior tech leaders actually believe that their organizations need to keep up with innovation to survive. And more, they actually worry about their actually lagging behind the competition. Now, one way to overcome this worry is to take action and join the innovation mega trend, right? Now, if you can see here, with unmanned, right, we will still like to be able to reach out to customers where they are, right? Whether it's an external customer or whether it's even like your employees, right? And unmanned will always mean that you could miss out of some other opportunities. Hence, you will need some form of conversations. Now, conversations that we're looking at is a natural way of communicating, and not that and also be able to reach those in the channel through the channels that they already have, like their mobile device, so they don't have to download additional applications. As we can see, right, we have many different applications already on our mobile devices, and I'm not looking forward to actually install another application. And most of the users, right, the key application that you're already running is some sort of a chat application, right? Whether it's WhatsApp or MSN Messenger, or even for the enterprise, using Slack or Slack or Microsoft Teams, right? And these are the channels that that you would like to engage your customers through, and to do this in all single interface. And it would also be nice to be able to engage them and make it available 24 hours a day throughout the whole year, right? So building a human-like type of conversation, unfortunately, isn't that straightforward, as they are not linear, right? So human conversations can actually go off topics and return, right? Now, what we see as well in this particular space is, everybody has heard of ChatGPT, right? And ChatGPT seems to be like the new hype in the conversation of in the AI space. Now, what is actually the reality, right, of conversational AI innovation versus like generative AI? Because ChatGPT is more like a generative type of AI based on a large language model, right? Now, if you look at the trend, right, we see in the beginning where ChatGPT has been launched, right, everybody's excited. Wow, it's able to answer all my questions, and it can quickly generate, and it's very elaborated answers that it can and looks credible, right? However, right, if you really look closer into what kind of like responses it generates, it's kind of like based on statistical. It's basically a statistical tool that actually predict language without actually understanding the language, and it produces like some statistically plausible answers. So the drawback here is I do not look for plausible answers or answers that might be or might not be correct. In an enterprise world, right, we're looking at the ability to actually give these answers and these kind of like conversations that are 100% correct. And if it doesn't know it, it just doesn't give, an answer just to fulfill, a response. But, it will not make up, any answers for that. And of course, you will be kind of like understanding that, okay, it is able to do this. We are looking at certain use cases. It is not great yet, but, as you can see, it's still improving and improving and still being, new releases being, released out, right? But for an enterprise space or enterprise use cases, it's most likely not used of not the right tool to provide access to system of records, integrations with backend systems that are in transactional side of capability, and the other what we can see for an enterprise use case could be searching through information documentation and give you the right answer, right? So we don't say that ChatGPT or OpenAI capability on large language model isn't great, right? But you really have to look into what are the typical use cases that you're looking at, and this is where you would like to have more control about how you access the information and what kind of information you're going to do there, right? And this is kind of like the thing that we want to address, right, as well, while we are talking about the right conversational tooling for your use cases. Now, we have already spoken about innovation and how can we help, and how can Oracle actually help right there to provide you these different toolings that are required to help you innovate. Now, at Oracle, right, we have kind of like structured in such a way that to make it easier for you, right? So accelerating innovation with OCI is actually very easy to understand, right? It's as easy as A, B, C, D. Now, you can see here, we have the A for AI machine learning. We offer ready-to-use AI models that can understand, and detect languages, extract key phrases, and understand sentiments from social media feeds, speech for text for English, European language and Hindi also supported. And also, we have a model for anomaly detection and forecasting use cases as well, right? So those are the typical tools that are already available in OCI as your innovation platform. And if you use AI or ML, if you have your AI ML use cases for your specific industry purpose, right? For example, automating text research or review, you can use data science to develop those purpose-built machine learning models and train it using your data. Furthermore, we have catalogs. We can catalog all your data sources, you run analytics dashboards and machine learning models to use, using our data mesh. Now, moving forward to blockchain, right? Blockchain is all about connecting multiple organizations, stakeholders to record and share, data in a trusted and immutable way. Now, it is ideal for, multi-party transactions. And in the business world, transactions always involve buyers, sellers, banks, insurance, and sometimes, tax departments as well. At Oracle, in this platform, we offer a blockchain cloud service using, open source Hyperledger Fabric, and we built all the different tooling around it to make it easier for you to focus on your business and chain design rather than, setting up the whole infrastructure for a blockchain. And it's very it's optimized performance, and it's and you can roll it out for large scale deployments. Now, moving to C for cloud native, and we had an earlier session, really diving more deeper and some hands-on lab on this particular topic. Well, basically, cloud native refers to applications that is designed to actually utilize cloud elasticity and demand, and on the demand nature. Well, the application can then tap on the cloud capabilities to handle peak performance, for a short time and scale back and save cost, right? And the application needs to be agile, allowing enhancement to be made continuously. Now, OCI offers a complete range of cloud-native services that actually deliver the scalability and agility using, Kubernetes containers, CI/CD, toolchain, and observation and management tools. Now, moving to digital experience, in this digital world, right? Experience is very important, and it makes technology more human and to keep the users engaged. Take a mobile application, for example. If it's too difficult to navigate and to use, you will give up very quickly. And on OCI, we offer a full range of low-code application development services, which allows developers to build, applications faster, and put the efforts to improve the user experience. You can build web, mobile, and chatbots, right, using text, voice, and capability in minutes, right? And today's session, right, we're really going to focus on, how digital assistants, or Oracle Digital Assistant can help you to, to innovate, right? Now, the combination of ABCD here, right, will allow you to engage users with a good experience, make your service agile and scalable, and you can share trusted data with business stakeholders, and you can achieve a higher level of automation using AI. Now, taking this ABC platform, right, ABCD platform, here is a sample use case, right? So I've actually run through this sample use case in my earlier session on low-code application development. So if you want to really see, the details of this particular demo, then please, I would like to refer to that one. Now, basically, if you look at ABCD and all the different capabilities in there, you can actually build mobile web applications, right, using low-code application development Apex. Right. In this case, you built a Formula One mobile application. You have maybe Twitter feeds coming in there. You can make use of sentiment analysis capabilities on OCI to actually understand, what are the sentiments of those Formula One racing fans, right, about the different races that are happening or that are currently happening, right, in the world. From there, you can, automate that process and do bulk analysis on all the different Twitter feeds, for example. You have dashboards that can help you to understand, right, the different factors that influence fans, right, using AutoML capabilities in our autonomous database, right? And you can do analysis and correlation. And from there, you can actually continue to engage, with the racing fan using conversational interfaces like Oracle Digital Assistant. Yeah. Now, if you look at the innovation platform and what we're gonna, cover or discuss today, right, is the digital assistant chatbot, right? So you can handle, web experiences, progressive web applications, even chat and voice, and also internal portals, to manage. And you can actually connect with backend services on the same platform using integration, data integration, and also repositories for content management or content repositories, connecting to different sources, any database, any application, any cloud in a way, and as well, utilizing machine learning and data science and using all the other OCI native services. Okay. Now, moving to digital assistant, right? So digital assistant actually solve problems. Now, usually, what is the motivation that users actually have, right, on using an application or using ability to access certain information? Now, sometimes it's complex tasks which takes too long, right? I hate doing expenses reports, for example, or I have to wait too long on a queue, on a phone queue to actually, get help from a service desk or whatever. Usually applications have poor user experience and it's hard to use. And, the interface is usually very overloaded, and you would like to have a very simple application. And by right, not even install any new application, but using, what they already have, right? Now, when it comes to availability, user availability, right? I have not enough people to actually handle all these like service requests or, questions from my customers or, from my employees, right? Or I don't have any trained employees to meet the requirements to the organization. Call center staff are overloaded with calls and chat requests. Call center agents are only available 24, during business hours, but, we want to be able to enable them 24/7 to be able to address the questions that they have, right? So from this, right, let's actually take a look at how easy it is, right, to build a bot, right, or at least not a bot, but a digital assistant using OCI, Oracle Digital Assistant. And I would like to hand this over to Barry, who will actually run you through this particular demo scenario on how a bot is typically created. Yeah. So Barry, I would like to hand it over to you.
Okay, and if you could just release, you haven't given me the release, so in the meantime, hopefully you, hello, given the position of the camera, I will probably turn that off.
Yeah. Right.
So let's get to it. So if we, okay, so when we look at building conversational interfaces, there is a number of steps that we need to do it successfully. And this is one of the things where Digital Assistant does make it significantly easier to build this sort of conversational AI without necessarily having to be an AI expert to do it. So initially, if we take the first step is going to be defining what do we actually want the user to be able to do. And we refer this to as an intent. So an intent is what's the goal of the user. And then we also look at what information do we need to capture that we're going to pass to our back-end system in order to activate or get the information from our systems of record. So that's the first step, and that's ultimately almost technology agnostic, and that it's going to really be the goal. Then we have to, having defined these intents and entities which flow into our NLP or natural language processing, we then obviously have to design the conversation. And the conversation flow is ultimately going to be react to how the user answers the questions and their goals. So we want to be able to do that as easily as possible. And traditionally that might be a more sort of code-based thing, whether it be sort of JavaScript or Python or whatever. But within the ODA, we've actually made that easy by implementing sort of a visual metaphor, and I'll show you that. Once we've got our sort of NLP set up and the flow, we can then train it, allow it to understand what the user is actually asking, and then we're going to publish that. So effectively, point 3 is where we've got the point where our bot is going to be used by our end users. But that's not the end. One of the most important parts of any conversational interface is the idea that we need to care and feed, or really look after, find out what questions our users are actually asking and respond accordingly, or be able to capture accordingly. So let's actually show that. We'll go through those steps accordingly. So what I'm going to do is flip over to my browser here. So we'll jump into the development environment. And I'm just going to jump to my browser. Okay, so here we are in the development environment. And first things first, we know our bot is going to access a back-end system of record. So what we want to do up front is really expose how we might get to it. So this is where we can come in and basically look at what we refer to as a REST connector. And this allows us to look at, or effectively declaratively define, where our data is coming from. So you can see here we're looking at, in this case, it's a very simple example of getting the weather from the Open Weather website. So in this case, I'm calling a REST endpoint, and I'm defining the parameters that would be used by that REST service. So here you can see we've got two parameters. We've got units and a general query parameter, which specifies the city in which we want to find out the weather. Having defined that, I can actually actively call it. So in this case, and you can see that it's gone off and got the live data from that endpoint. So we now know that our data is there, and that data can be both cloud-based or ultimately on-premise information. And you'll see this when we go to the database conversation of how we can access sort of on-premise databases as well. So having got our service in place, what I'm going to do is pull up a sort of partially built one, and let's start with the concept of an intent. And as I said, the intent is the goal of the user. So here we can see that the intent is really to get the weather in a particular location. And what we want to be able to do is then specify or give examples of how someone might ask that question. And this is ultimately the way we sort of train the NLP, is we actually give it examples of how someone would actually try and get that goal or that intent. So here you can see we've got a number of simple examples. What's the weather like in San Francisco? How hot is it in London? That sort of thing. And then, so that's going to give us our intent structure. We then need to capture the entities or the sort of important information. And as we saw from the REST service, the important information here is going to be our unit. Do we want it in Celsius or Fahrenheit or the like, as well as the city. And if we jump into our entities, and I'll just refresh that so make sure it comes up. Okay. Just going to make sure that it trains correctly. That's better. So you can see here we have some entities like the list of cities that we might possibly be asking for the weather for. Likewise, we may specify it by country. So I want to know the temperature in the capital of Andorra, which happens to be Andorra. But then we also have a new type, or a type of entity, which is referred to as a composite bag. And the nice thing about composite bags is it allows you to effectively wrap up all the questions you might need to ask in a single object. So think of it as being able to take, rather than building a conversation that has question 1, question 2, question 3, etc., we can build a conversation that effectively uses the metadata for what we're trying to achieve, and it will generate the conversation for us. So you can see here in my composite bag, I've said, well, I need to know about the city and I need to know about the units. And then when we build our conversation, it's going to automatically generate the questions required to find out about our city and find about our units. So let's go to the flow now. And when we define a flow is defined visually. So you can see here that what I'm going to do is, let's come to the start, and I'm going to add the first state. And in this case, the first state is going to be one of these resolve composite bags. And a resolve composite bag is telling the bot to go and find all the answers to those questions or the units that we need to get within that composite bag. So I'm going to say, okay, let's just call this get, let's say get weather questions for want of a name. And in this case, we're going to specify which composite bag or it's going to use. So what I want to be able to do here is let's create a new variable, and we're going to call this new variable weather query. And this is where we can then point to the types of questions we're going to ask. So here we're pointing to the composite bag for weather query. And if I apply that, you'll see straight away that it says, okay, these are the questions that you're going to have to ask about the city, ask about the sort of the units. And yep. Okay, so once we've done that, we've created our parameter, we've got that. What I'm going to do now is come to the action. And what we're going to do here is add a new state. And in this case, the new state is going to reference our REST connector. So I'm going to call my REST service here. Let's just say, we'll give this a name, get weather in city. And this is where we can now come along and say, okay, I want to choose that open weather REST connector that we created before. And in this case, I'm going to use the available get method. And I can then go down and say, well, we know that there are parameters in there, but I'm going to override those parameters. So I'm going to say at runtime, let's say the parameter is Q, that was the one that was the city. And what I'm going to ask it to do now is take the value that I actually typed in or the user supplied at runtime. Likewise, if I wanted to know the units, I could come along and let's say this is, well, in this case, the type, oops, we'll make this a query type. And I'm going to accept that one. And let's just create another one here. We'll call this one units. I'm going to ask it to use the value that the user supplied in the conversation. And again, this is a query parameter for this particular REST service. So once we've got that, we also need to tell it where to put the output. So in this case, I'm going to say that when you go and get the weather, put it into a local variable that I'd created before called current weather result. So that's going to, as the conversation flows, it's going to ask us which units do you want, which city do you want. It's going to straight away go off and get the weather forecast for that city. And then it's going to place the output in this variable. What we want to do next is obviously print out the output. So I'm going to come to my transitions here, and the transitions is really where do you go next. So I'm going to create a new transition, and in this case, we're going to say if you are successful, we're going to transition to a new state, which is going to be a simple print out message, and we'll call this sort of, we'll just call it weather. And what I'm going to do here is, let's get rid of that. I'm going to open this up and let's take the component here. And in this case, I'm going to use what's referred to as a resource bundle, basically a text. Think of it as a print string. So I'm printing all the different things that are coming back from the weather, and it's going to display that accordingly. Now, if I come back and say, well, what happens if I don't succeed? Well, let's add a new state there. And in this case, I could just do a send message, and we'll call this one failure. And if we come back to my transition, let's come and add my failure, and I'm going to transition to, we'll add a new state, sorry. So let's call this, we'll call this failed. And in this case, we're going to just simply print out an error message. So as you can see, it's, in terms of steps, it was pretty straightforward. We had define where we're getting the data from, which is in the case of that REST service. Then we wanted to create some intents that allowed us to say what's the goal of the user in this case. And for this very simple example, it's going to be, I'm going to get the weather. And then we basically allowed it to, in the conversation flow, to step through our metadata required to answer that question, the units, etc., and then go off and get the answer and ultimately print it out. So having done that, we can then make sure it's trained. Yep. And we'll jump into the trainer here, or the previewer, and let's say how hot is it in, and I'll choose Singapore because that's where Rodney is. Aha, this would be the purposed intent. One thing that you may have noticed is I didn't actually say what to do when they ask the question. And that's where we come to the idea of tying an intent to the action that's going to happen. So in this case, I can say that my intent was get the weather, and I'm going to map it to my little flow that I've just generated. So when we build a digital assistant with ODA, we're effectively mapping goals of the user to fragments of conversation that can dynamically change based on if I have a number of different flows, if the user goes off topic to what Rodney was discussing before with human speech being non-linear. The nice thing is by creating these little sort of scriptlets of conversation, we can jump around them and follow the user as they have that conversation. So let's try that again. So let's make sure I'm just going to, let's delete this one. And let's give that a go. So what I'm going to do is, well, let's try the same statement. How hot is it in Singapore? And in this case, because I hadn't actually specified the units I want to do, it's going to automatically ask me what units I would want based on that composite bag that we defined. In other words, defining the types of information we need to capture. So in this case, I'm going to say metric. And because I define, you notice it didn't ask about do I want which city, because obviously I'd supplied Singapore in my original utterance. If I'd said give me the temperature in Sydney in Fahrenheit, it would have just gone straight to the answer. Okay, so let's jump back to here for a second. So before we go in sort of looking at some of the more advanced sort of NLP that is coming out, and obviously many of you have heard of the likes of large language models and ChatGPT, etc. What we're actually looking at there is a particular type of natural language or AI called generative AI, and we'll come back to that. But the digital assistant has basically a state-of-the-art language processing or NLU functionality within the product. So it uses a number of very advanced techniques to ultimately work out what the user's actually asking. And that's one of the important things with any good chatbot. Chatbots don't answer questions. That's what systems of record do. They have the answer. What chatbots truly do is work out what the user's actually asking in the first place, to understand the user rather than having to have the user understand the application. And that's, to one of Rodney's points before, that's one of the big advantages of using conversational sort of interfaces, is it allows users to access applications very easily without having to first learn the intricacy of the application, because the application ultimately is understanding the user and their goal in coming there in the first place. So when we talk about traditional sort of natural language processing, what you had there before was this idea of defining an intent. An intent, as I said, being the goal of what the user wants to do. But at the same time, there's a new form of AI coming out, which is referred to as intentless, and this is sort of fits into, or prompt-based AI. And this is much of where this sort of generative AI is coming from, is this idea of being able to access the outcome without having to necessarily specify every possible intent. So intentless NLP is a way of effectively saying, well, this is what I want to do. You work out what the outcome would be, and we'll discuss that in a bit more detail. So if we look at ODA and just quickly sort of recapture what we saw before in the demo, what we're seeing is basically the ability to specify your NLP and the intent, but then go through a visual sort of metaphor to really break up that conversation into components. And you can look at a conversation almost like taking smart Lego bricks and putting them together as the user goes along. And that way, if they jump from one part of the conversation to another, as I said, we can jump and follow them and process as accordingly. So the nice thing is, you saw there was really no code. There's some sort of references to resource bundles, which are, as I said, text strings. Is really externalizing your output strings. But the nice thing is we can also take that one step further, which is to say, how could I build, say, an FAQ, where an FAQ has lots of possible questions? So this is where we can use what we refer to as knowledge resources, where I can point ODA at my FAQs or my FAQ website and have it ingest that website, ingest that policy document, and ultimately generate an FAQ on my behalf. So it's going to use sort of AI to work out what's the question, what's the answer, and in this case, it generates an intent, where the intent is the specific answer to that question. But let's get into a sort of a quite exciting extension to this. And what I'd like to introduce to you today is the idea of SQL dialogues. And SQL dialogue is the ability to effectively talk to your database. So it's going to allow you to place queries in natural language, and then have the bot work out what is the most appropriate way of getting that answer and answering accordingly. So in this case, what it does is it takes your natural language and it ultimately converts it to a SQL statement that allows you to get the data from the database. So again, let me, rather than go into great detail, it's probably easier to show it. So I'm going to, again, jump across. Let's come back to my browser here. And here, for example, you can see in my skill, I have no intent. So in other words, I haven't specified any characteristics that I might, or goals that I might want to achieve. If I go to the entities, on the other hand, this is where I might want to use, as said, information in the database. So the first thing we do, similar to what we did with the REST connector, is I can come along and basically specify that I have some databases in the back end. So here we have a classic sort of Scott Tiger style database that's running. In this case, it's a ADB database, but it could just as easily be an on-premise database. So I've specified using sort of standard OCI the connection to my database there. Then if I come back to my skill, what I can do is actually use that information to create the data. So let's just quickly do that. So I'm going to create a new skill, and we'll call this C360 SQL. And what I can do now is come along and basically look at my intent, or my entities, I should say, and let me okay. So here are my entities, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to import from that data service. So here, for example, we've got our Scott tables, and you can see that it said, okay, I've gone off and looked at the dictionary to find out what's there. And this is a good example of prompt-based AI. So what we're using here is the actual data dictionary to prompt the AI into what is important and what we need to be able to come out of it. So in this case, I'm going to import this. And what that's going to do is effectively build entities for us out of the table structures. So you can see here I've got my emp table, and by default it's called emp. I can go and look at, say, its primary name. So let's call this, rather than saying emp, let's call this employees. Likewise, I can see the attributes that are in there. So I've got my department, I've got my jobs, things like that. And in fact, if I actually come along and drill into I can actually say, well, rather than define it as a string, let's actually define it as an entity. Now, in this case, the entity doesn't exist. So let's go and generate one. So what it's doing is, you can see that it's actually generated a unique entity type that is of type job inside my employee table. And if I was to actually look at that and drill into it, we can see that what it's done is it's actually gone off and looked at the various objects inside that table, and it's generated an entity list for us. So I could quite happily say, give me all the employees who are sales reps. Now, if I drill into that, I can also apply synonyms. So I could say, for example, sales representative. And that way, I don't have to use the actual column names or the actual data values. I can build up the NLP to how a user would actually ask the question. Now, once we've gone through and created that, and we set up the synonyms for our tables, we can go and ask as many questions we like against those tables without having to define any intents. So, for example, I've taken the skill that we first saw, and I've published it to a website. So here I've come to the skill, and I can ask how many employees in the company. And you can see now that what it's done is behind the scenes, it's gone off, generated the appropriate SQL for us, and accessed that database to return the data. And I can get more complex questions. I could say, let's try, what is the maximum and average salary for people in the Bay Area? In other words, I'm not even referencing a city, just how someone would ask for it. And you can see there that the first thing the bot says is, well, this is what I think you're talking about. Is this correct? And if so, here's your answer. So we can see that the maximum salary is $1,000 a month, and the minimum and the average is $956. So they're presumably all around the same price. So the nice thing about this is it allows you to set it up and then use generative AI, because that's really what this is, to generate the appropriate required query to access our database. Now, I mentioned care and feeding, and this is probably one of the most important parts of any conversational UI development, because ultimately, no matter how good your development team is, the end user will always ask a question that you had never thought of. So to be successful with a digital assistant, or in fact any conversational interface, you want to be able to have good real-time view of what the end users are actually asking. And then being able to see, okay, their users are asking questions about sort of leave application, whereas the bot I built was actually about expenses. So by seeing that lots of people are asking about leave application, it allows us to very quickly plug in a new Lego block to make sure we're able to actually answer those questions going forward. So real-time care and feeding allows us to basically react to the real-world questions that our end users are asking, and not what we think they're going to ask. So this is an incredibly powerful capability within the product to be able to see, well, these are the top 50 questions that people asked. These are the top areas that they were interested in. These are the number of transactions that actually finished, as opposed to the end user just walked away. So having that sort of level of information allows us to iteratively improve our chatbot and make sure that if we weren't able to answer the question the first time, we certainly would be able to answer the question in subsequent requests, because we were able to see that question existed and we needed to add it to our chatbot. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to throw it back to Rodney.
Yes, thank you very much, Barry, for all these insights and your demonstration on our digital assistant. So one of the customers that I would like to highlight, and this is before we actually move to actually doing a hands-on lab, we have PLDT, and PLDT is a leading telecommunication digital services provider in the Philippines, and they're offering fixed line and wireless services. They have about approximately 80 million subscribers and 1.8 million followers on Facebook page. Hence, they were thinking of like, how do I reach out to my followers in Facebook by basically using a digital assistant, right, to enable that in Facebook Messenger. Right. They've enabled customer service digital assistant to help generate deflection rates from a call center to a help desk, And also they have 5 different use cases in their initial launch: product and services for FAQ, view and pay balance, report payments, broadband issue triage, line issues and incident reporting, right? And they're currently, also recently releases 3 more use cases at PLDT. Furthermore, and as you can see, right, this is very scalable, and it really helps you as an organization to reduce manpower, or not to reduce, but I mean to be more effective and to be more engaging with your customers, or even with your employees. So Barry, can I share again with you?
Yep.
Share. All right. So having said that, we actually going to move to the hands-on labs, and for those who stay tuned, thank you for that. But before we actually go to do hands-on lab, I have some poll questions that I would like to have you fill in, right, to also understand, what do you think about what you have learned today, and also, if this is something that you already are exploring in your organization, etc. Right? So please, have a few minutes to go through this poll, and from there we're gonna move to the next bit of this session, the hands-on labs. Okay. So I'll give you another minute to go through those. Okay, so let me just go and introduce the hands-on lab. You will have your own experience, building a digital assistant. Now, for this, right, you may need a tenancy at our cloud infrastructure, right? So we will, run through how you can actually sign up a free tier. And with this, we will also go and create the skills, and you have kind of learned a little bit about the skills already, what the skill is, and as well within the skill, building up the intents, to test the model, to create the different entities, and to design your dialogue, and of course, testing your skills. Yeah. Now, for this, you don't actually need any software to be downloaded. You can use your browser to actually access the hands-on labs, but also to access the designer interface to actually build your digital assistant. Now, as for an extra, right, as we also already spoken about our SQL dialogue capability, there's a second hands-on lab that you could, most likely we don't have time to run through this today, but we will be sharing here the link where you can actually access this hands-on lab, and you can actually try out what Barry has shown to you in his demo. But for now, just go to this bit.ly link, right, or scan the QR code that you can go and start the hands-on lab. So let me go and share my browser. Okay. Now, whenever you go to the link, right, you will actually land into our hands-on lab landing page, where you find a little bit more information. You can bookmark this page, right? And once you have done that, then you actually go and click on Start, and you select Run Your Tenancy. Now, before that, right, we would like to actually help you to create a free account, right? And whenever you register for a free account, use the email address that you have used to register for this webinar and hands-on lab. Now, the reason for that is that we have whitelisted your email addresses and email accounts so that you do not have to use your credit card details whenever you are going to assign or create an account for us, of account at a free account at our cloud, right? So first of all, what you do is you go to this link, oracle.com/cloud/free, or you can, if you have opened up the hands-on lab information of the hands-on lab page itself, then you can just click on the link here, right? That will take you to a registration page where you can provide your details, the email address that you have used to register. And if you have attended to earlier sessions of ours on the digital native of cloud native development and low code, you might already have an account, yeah, and you can reuse that account as well. Then once you have registered and verified your email address, right, then you can actually go and sign into your account. Now here you actually, here are all the different details, right? You go to cloud.oracle.com, or in your email, there will be also a link, you register a link that you can actually click on and go to. So then you provide the tenancy, that is the account name, sorry, that you have created or that's been signed to. Then you log in using the cloud identity service, right? From there, you are then logged into OCI console, right? So what I'll do, I'll give you 5 minutes to actually go through this process. If you have any questions or you have any issues registering for a free account, please feel free to reach out on the Q&A, right? So we can help you to go to the next steps, right? So for now, I'll be giving you 5 minutes, and I'll be getting back 5 minutes to actually show you where you can actually go and provision, yeah, an ODA instance for your tenancy. Okay, so I assume that many of you have been able to successfully register for a free tier account. And once you have actually logged into your OCI, you will get the ability to sign into your account. So let me just this up again. So you sign into your account. Yeah. And from there, you should be seeing something similar that you see here on your screen. Okay. So now the next thing is like I've actually opened up my tenancy here as well, right? So this is basically, you know, access to my tenancy where I can go and provision an ODA instance. Now, in order to do that, at the left-hand top corner, there's a hamburger menu that actually gives you access or shows an overview of all the different um, services, but also the different compute and infrastructure that you can provision. Now, for digital assistant, it's a fully managed service. So for that, we actually navigate to AI analytics and AI section, right? If we click on that, then you will see on the right-hand corner, right-hand side, actually, you will see the different AI services that you can provision. Now, the one that we're looking for is the digital assistant service. Now you can pin this. Then if you actually log in next time, you can on your landing page you will be able to navigate directly to this section. Now I will go and click on digital assistant. Now in my case, right, I already have a digital assistant provision, but let me just show you what you need to do. So in here, in your case, it will be empty. So in this case, we click on create digital assistant. We provide a compartment name. If you don't have a compartment, then most likely it's going to be your root compartment. You provide a name for that instance. And what I suggest you to do is actually to use the development shape for your instance, right? So you can actually go and configure development and production instances. You can optionally, you can actually go and say view digital assistant details upon creating. So it gives you, all the different details. There are some advanced options that that are there for you to actually tag the instance that you have for more or less for administrative purposes, right? If you're going to deploy more services on OCI. Now, once you have filled out the name and an optional description and the shape, then you can click on create, and it will actually start creating your digital assistant instance. Now, once that is done, you will be seeing your instance listed in this overview, and you will see that the state would most likely be provisioning. Yeah. Now you will have to wait until it's active, and once it's active, you can actually go and see the different details. Yeah. Now in here you have the information about the instance, the tags if you have used that, right? And the different, and if you look at different sources that are being provisioned underneath, right? Now we have here a URI that can actually go directly to the console, and the console is basically where you will be developing your bot or your skills. You can actually go copy and paste it into another browser tab, or you can click on service console, right? So I'll click on service console. So what it will do, it will actually open up your digital assistant. You need to specify your tenancy details, specify login, identity provider. In my case, I have a two-factor authentication enabled. So let me just go and give in my passcode. Yeah. All right, so that takes me to the landing page of the digital assistant. Now, as you can see, I've done some bolts that I've created there earlier. So in your case, it would be empty, right? So I'll give you another 5 minutes to just go and provision your instance, right? So let me just quickly go through it again to navigate. This is your landing page. You go to the hamburger menu, you go to analytics and AI, you click on digital assistant, right? You create a digital assistant instance, you provide the name, description, the shape, and you click on create. Yeah. So I'll give you another 5 minutes to do that. All right, so let me go through the steps again for those that are a little bit behind. So again, you've logged into the OCI console. You navigate using the hamburger menu, going to Analytics and AI, clicking on Digital Assistant, create a Digital Assistant instance, fill out name, and choose the shape development. Yeah. And then click on Create. Okay, now for those that that have been able to successfully provision Oracle Digital Assistant instance, let's get started, right? Let's get started to start building your first bot. Now, as I mentioned, right, in order to access the console, you actually go and navigate to your instance. You click on Service Console, or you copy the base URL here and paste it into a browser, and it will take you to the login screen for your Digital Assistant instance. So this is when you logged in here. Now let's take a look at the workshop itself. Now the first lab is to create a skill. Now, what is a skill, right? So a skill is basically, the ability for a bot, or you can call it a mini bot, that is able to do a certain task. Yeah. Now, if you have multiple different skills, you can actually combine them into a digital assistant itself, which is more like a kind of like umbrella or a digital assistant that understands or is capable of, performing, different things, right? You can have like a skill that knows how to look up information in the employee directory. And then you can have a skill that can help you to, for example, submit your expense reports, right? So those can be like separate skills, and they can be combined into a digital assistant. Now, actually, what we start here is building a skill. Now, in order to build a skill, we actually go and open up the development environment for ODA. We navigate to skills, right? And then we click on new skill. We provide a name for the skill. In this case, we are going to build a pizza bot, right? Or pizza skill. So we provide the name of the skill that will be displayed. And then we have the name of the skill itself. Then we can use, the platform versions, etc. We can just, use the default functions. And then once the skill is created, then, it will show this particular result here. Now, let me go through it, right? Here, I'm going to go and navigate to development. I'm going to click on skill. And then I'm going to click on new skill. Now, the display name would be Pizza King. Right. Now, it already created, kind of like filled up the name of the bot. Now, I'll keep it the same. I'll just keep here the latest versions, right, that is available, the primary language. And we use the visual designer to do the dialogue design. What we do then is click on create. Now, once it is created, let's create the skill. It will actually, open up the skill, and it will actually take you, to your first starting point of building your skills. Now, let's take a look at the next step, right? So once we have the skill, then we want to go and create the intents. Yeah. Now, the intents, as Barry already kind of like mentioned in his demo, it's what you want this, what the user is actually asking for to execute or to get, right? In this case, we want to create intents to be able to order a pizza, right? We want to be able to cancel a pizza, and we will be able to, file a complaint, right? Now, these are the three different intents that we are going to build here in this particular hands-on lab. And of course, we will be able to test and train, the intents, right? So let's go and create the first intent. Now, what we need to do is we go to the intent button. Next to the conversation name, there will be an edit button, and it will help you to actually go and you have to enter like order pizza, right? So this is the one that I need to create. Right? So what I'll do, I go back here. I'm going to create an intent, right? I provide, it's automatically, kind of like populating the default string for that. I'm going to go and edit the conversation name itself. This is going to be order pizza. And the intent name, let's go back here, would be order pizza, right? Let's give an intent name here, order pizza, right? Now, what is the next thing we need to do, right? So in order to understand the intent, right, we need to be able to say, okay, what are the different utterances? And utterances are the various ways that you can actually go and, ask the bot, right? So here we have in the description a set of example sentences that we want to use. Now I will copy this, right? And I will basically navigate to the examples, right? So the utterances to add. So this section here, I would like to address. Now I can copy and paste it directly in here, but we want to use the advanced input mode, right? To make it sure that it's all separated in single line. Now I click on advanced input mode and I paste here the utterances, right, that I've copied. And then I click on create. Now what will happen, it will basically take the steps and it will sort it, right? And then here we have, the utterances that we actually just added right into this particular skill. Yeah. Now, what's the next thing that we need to do? Right. So we have the advanced mode, we have copy and paste it, and that's it. Right. So we actually done creating the first intent. Now let's go to the next intent. So we need to create another intent, which is called cancel pizza intent. Again, we follow the same steps. So let's go here. I will just copy this from here. I go back to my bot. I will say, okay, over here, add a new intent. It's there. I click on it. I modify the conversation name, cancel pizza. Change this into cancel pizza. Please note there should not be any spaces in the name itself. Yeah. And then I go again, create all these utterances. Yeah. I go and paste it. I create, right? So it has like 11 sample utterances. And I would do the same thing for the other skill. So I will add another intent, right? I go into creating the file complaint intent. Again, I click on edit, file complaint intent, and make sure that there's no space in there in the name, right? And then again, I will be copying the different utterances for this intent. Yep, so create, and there you go, right? So once you have done this, then it will ask us to train the intents, right? So in this case, at the top corner, there is a button for training. So in this case, we will be training the intents using the trainer TM. So this is more a machine learning based model, right? That we then apply to train the bot. And you have also like trainer HT, which is like a more linguistical based model. Let's say if you have, if you want to do a quick training, then you can use the trainer HT model for a quick training to test your intents, right? If you want to go production, of course, it will ask you to use the whole fully machine learning based model. Now, the good thing about the machine learning based model training is that it will also be able to understand or to come up with other suggestions on how a certain question or input from the user can be asked. Yeah. Now, what I do here, so I've got all my intents. I go and train. I use the I will use the HT, right? It's a very quick one. And click on submit. Or you can use the other one as well. And basically what it does here, it will be training, the model. Skill is trained, as you can see, it's quite fast. And then what you can do then is to basically quickly, test your utterance, right? So here is a button or a link that can actually test your utterances, right? And utterance could be, I want to order a pizza. Yeah. And then you can see here, ordering pizza. It has a confidence threshold of 0.7 on the utterance, and it detected that the utterance to use is order pizza. Order pizza, and the intent to use is basically order pizza. And then you can have different test cases as well, right? So, okay. Now I will give you some time to do, the lab 1 and lab 2. Yeah, and I'll give you another 5 minutes to do that. Yeah, so I'll be back on in 5 minutes time. Okay, so for those that are a little bit behind, so let me just go through again on how you would be able to access the once you have provisioned your instance, right? So once you've provisioned your digital assistant instance, you navigate to your instance itself, you click on the service console, right? And it will take you, to the digital assistant landing page right here. Yeah, so it will take you here to the landing page, home here, right? And then from there, you navigate to development and then create skills and create a new skill over there. Yeah. As for the documentation, right? Please follow the link, right? So I will paste this link into the chat. So I will ask my colleagues to paste that into the chat so you are aligned with, the right set of instructions, right? To actually, go through this hands-on lab. Okay. Let me just go back to the skill that I've just created. Oh, my skill was the pizza skill. Pizza King. All right. Okay. For those that have catched up, please do not please just continue, right? If you're way ahead, I'll try to, though for those that are a bit behind, I'll try to repeat as much as possible so you can catch up and follow, right? Now the next part is to actually, we have already done the creation of the intents. Now we have also showcased on how you can test your model, or the test, the utterances that you have actually done. And you can actually see here now whether, those utterances are actually being found or not being found, but all these utterances actually go to the expected results. Yeah. Okay, so just this one here. I haven't tried the cancel pizza or the file complaint. Let me just do that, right? So we have done, I want to order a pizza. Now what we want to do is, you are expensive and you still don't deliver on time. So this is more like a complaint. So let's see on how that will handle, right? So you are expensive and don't deliver on time. Okay, so now I will test this utterance, and it will see that it's kind of like, in my case, going more towards a cancel pizza more than an order pizza. Yeah, and file complaint here. Now what we can do here is we can actually go and modify, or actually select which one it should be, right? So this is more like a complaint. So I will select this one here and save as a, I can save it as a test case. Yeah. Okay. All right. So that was the complaint. Then we have another one, select the file complaint radio that we done, right? And then add to intent, right? So what we can do here is, okay, file complaint, and then it should actually add to complaint, but yeah, it's not giving me that option. Okay, I will have to check my setting for that. Maybe I should have done the train. So let me just retrain it on the trainer TM. So it will use the machine learning model rather than the linguistic model. So this will take a little bit more time. Yeah. Okay, so while it's training, let me see the next steps. So, okay, so he will need to retrain. Yeah. File complaint radio. Okay. Now the next one would be actually creating entities. Right. Now entities are basically additional information that you would like to ask if the intent is not has not been identified correctly, right? So for example, you need more parameters or you need more information. In this case, we want to provide, what is the size, and what type, right? So we can actually go and create those particular entities for that. right? So now the first task would be create an entity for the size and the pizza toppings, right? So we go and navigate to the designer. We click on plus entity, and then we specify the pizza size. The configuration will be a value list type menu. You have small, and then we can actually add some synonyms on how you could, other ways to actually identify small, and then click on create, right? From there, we do the same for all the other, for large as well, right? So, okay, so let's go to create the entities for the size and the entities for the topping. Now here we go to, so let me just copy this here because I will need it. Let's go to entities. So this is the, the puzzle piece icon. And here you can see all the default entities that are available out of the box. We create an add entity. We provide a name, pizza size, right? Then we have a value list, right, that we need to select. And then we can add the different values, right? So the value would be small, right? So let's create small. Okay, so we have small, then we can have the synonyms of asking how small, how you can actually say small, right? So smallest, for example, that could be a synonym, right? And you can add more synonyms to it. So then I click on create. All right. Now the additional value would be, medium size. So medium, middle, right? Great. And we can add another value, large. Yeah, just give some examples. All right. So now we can click on create, and we have actually created the entity pizza size. Yeah, so here we can still add new values. We can do the range size, etc. So let's go to the instructions. So follow the procedure. Okay, so we got medium, middle, large, big, grande, biggest, right? So we can still add these synonyms to it. So let me just do that as well. I'm going to go to large. I'm going to edit large. I'm going to add the other synonyms as well. Big we already had. Well, grande. So grande and biggest. Yeah, date. Right. So, and then we have created, and then we need to create another entity. This is for pizza topping. So let's do that. Go to add entity, pizza topping. It's going to be a value list as well. So let's see the pizza topping configuration, the value list, and separate the values here, right? With a comma. So we have meaty, veggie, and hot and spicy, and American hot. Yeah, so if we do at the values, just copy it here. Add the value. Pizza topping. Okay, so I have to add the name first. Sorry. Okay. Add another value. American hot. Okay. So we have meaty, veggie, hot and spicy. Now maybe we can actually let's do it differently. So let's just create another value here. Let's do it meaty and veggie, right? And then we can have hot and spicy. Okay. All right. So create. All right. So we've got then pizza size. We have the pizza toppings. Now this one we don't actually need anymore, right? So we just delete that. Okay, so we have American hot, hot and spicy, meaty and veggie. And then we've got the pizza sizes as well, large, medium, and small. Now, what is the next thing that we need to do is to edit the prompts for the entities, right? So in the list of entities, select the size, then we go to the prompt section, and then we say, okay, which size would you like for your pizza, right? So that is the prompt that we want to, right? So we copy this here. And because the prompts are actually the question that the bot will ask for to the user, right? So we go to prompts, yeah. Here we say, oh, sorry, we just gonna edit the existing one, sorry. Here, let's remove this first. Then we're gonna edit the existing one. Please enter the pizza size. We can change it into what size would you like. Yeah. The other prompt that we need to change is for the pizza topping, right? For the pizza topping, we say, what type of pizza would you like? Let me go here we select the topping entity. We navigate down to the prompts, and then we, sorry, again, I clicked too fast. Go to the prompt, edit this particular, what type you would like, and I would delete the other one. Okay. Yeah. So we have what type of pizza would you like? So these are the prompts. So then we have the ability to actually go and create the composite bag. So these are, all the different ways to simplify, what are the different or consolidated entity, right? So that you can have the questions to be asked to the bot is, the pizza size, and of course, what is the pizza type. So if that information is not being asked, then, the bot will ask for you. So what we do is we create a composite bag CBE pizza. So it's just composite bag entity. So we go into add entity, right? We give a name, and then we say it's a composite bag type of entity. Yeah. So we can click on create. It has created the composite bag entity, right? And then we need to add the items, right? So let's go back into the instructions. So now we need to add entities, right, into the bag, right? So what do we need to add? So we need to add the pizza size entity, and we need to add the date and time, and we need to provide, a prompt to say what time do you want to have it delivered, and then we can edit the delivery time and the toppings, right? So that's what we need to do. Okay, so we need to bag the pizza size, right? So we add in the bag, we provide the name, yeah, pizza size, bag item for number 1, pizza size. Then we, the type is entity, and the entity name is pizza size. So the type is entity, and then here we select pizza size. Okay. So this is bag number 1. So then we click on close. It has added it to it. Then we add another item. So the next item would be the pizza topping. Yeah. So we provide the name pizza topping and then entity, and this is the pizza topping entity, right? And then we say close. Now what we are going to ask is as well the time, right? So we're going to add a delivery time to it, and the entity would be time, and then we provide the right prompt for it. So bag item, this is delivery time. This would be delivery time entity. So type entity and then choose time, right? Entity, this would be date time, right? Then the subtype would be time. Okay. And then we provide a prompt is when can we deliver that to you? So then we're gonna go here. We go to the prompt. The prompt is here, right? We add a prompt and say, when can we deliver it to you? Right, and then we close. Right, so now we have created the entities for the pizza skill, pizza bot skill. We have created the pizza size and pizza topping entities. We have then created a composite entity, yes, bag entity, right? Which we include the pizza size, the topping, and the delivery time. Okay. And what's the next? Then we need to associate these entities with the order pizza intent, so that, you know, whenever we ask to order pizza, then, you know, the bot will be able to ask these questions because it needs this information, right? So we go into the designer itself, and then we select order pizza intent, and then we use pizza in the filter field and select the, yeah. So what we're going to do is associate the entities with the intent. Now we're going to go here back into the intents, go to order pizza, right? Order pizza, and then we, okay, then we add entity in add entity drop down. Add entity. Where's the order pizza? Oh, here, sorry. Add entity here. We then select the CBD pizza, right? And then we see here, we have added the entities in here, right? So CBD pizza. So as you can see here, that the red indicator here, it says that I need to retrain this skill, right? And that is that's the final step, is to actually retrain the model with the trainer TM, right? So I'm going to go and train the model with the trainer TM and click on submit. All right, so this will kind of like finishes off lab 4, right? Of course, we still need to test it. So I think you can go ahead and hopefully you've been clicking with me, or you can do it now. I'm going to wait for it to finish training, and then I'm going to go and test the entities. Yeah. So I'm going to give you another 2 minutes, yeah, to come up to speed. Then I'm going to showcase how to test the entities. Okay, my skill has been retrained. So now let's look at how we can test the entities. So on the left navigation, on the designer, select the test utterances and click reset, right? So let's go here, test utterances. Click on reset because they are the old utterances there. Then we say, okay, I can type in, I want to order a small hot spicy pizza, 7:30 p.m. and click test, right? So this particular question is actually already in exists out of the size, right? As you can see, the small, hot and spicy is the type, and the pizza, right? And also the time. So in this particular sentence, right, we are already providing all the different parameters or entities that is required, right, to actually come up to the result of the intent, right? So let's take that, right, and click on test. Right, as you can see here, right, it has all the information, so it gives the intent confidence of 100%. Yeah, because we already provide the pizza size, we provide the hot and spicy, the topping, and we provide the date and time, right? So as you can see here, right, this particular skill already allows you to actually go and order the pizza, providing all the different different entities, and the entities is all combined within the the bag, the entity bag pizza. All right, so I'm taking note of the time. It is now, we have actually officially 4 more minutes, right? Basically, the next lab would be, creating the dialogue, right? So the dialogue where you actually will be, applying a conversation flow, basically, in order to route it to, a question or not a question. Yeah. Sorry, to the intent, right? Here's the first thing we need to do is create all the pizza flow. We provide, we then provide a description. We then want to do an order pizza. We then create. We then click on the flow, the intent register order flow, and then we can add a start, mapping it all the different messages, yeah, and connecting it to an event. And I think Barry already actually highlighted this in his demo, right? So this is basically, tying up the conversation and tying it up to the right result and ordering a pizza, right? And you can then also test the skill. Once you have retrained it, right, you can test the skill and you can test the different flow, right? In this particular flow, you can say, okay, I would like to order a pizza. Then it will ask you, the size. It will ask you the toppings, and it will ask you the time, right? I want to order, or you can try, I want to order a medium pizza, right? Then it will ask you for the topping and for the delivery time, right? So those are all the different things that, you could go and test it out. Okay. Now we probably have another 2 minutes left. So I would suggest you to actually follow just, what we have done here, the steps and to try it out. And before we actually close this call, I just want to go into a little bit discussion, a conversation about the other hands-on lab that you can do, right? So, this particular session is recorded and will be published and available on demand, right? You will be also, be able to access a copy of the presentation. But, take note of this QR code, if you can scan it with your phone, or if you can just, write down the bit.ly link there, it will take you to this other hands-on lab where you can actually experience on how you can create a bot that actually talks to a database. Yeah. So it will, you will see, the difference. And this is also what, Barry actually has showed to you. Further, please do explore, right, all the different capabilities, right? So if we go back here, you have the ability to create multiple skills, right? You have the ability to also see here, multiple skills. You can create a digital assistant, and the digital assistant is basically, so if I take this financial digital assistant, for example, it consists out of, 4 different skills, right? So it will then understand the different, ways of, financial accounting or insurance or online banking, right? And then you can go to those individual skills, right? So the great thing about this is that digital assistant will do intelligent routing, right? So when I talk about, I want to, in this case, find more about insurance, but I also want to see how much money I have in my bank account, for example, right? I can actually go and switch off topic, and, digital assistant will do the routing to the right skills and, getting to the right intents. enabling it for, different channels then, right? So we have, we can add the channels. So the channels that we can have is, Facebook Messenger, Webhook, Twilio, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Cortana. We have the SDKs for web, for Android devices, and for iOS. So as you can see here, right, the great thing about this is that you can create a bot once, or digital assistant once with its several skills, and enable it into all the different channels, that you would like to enable this bot, right? So you don't have to rebuild the digital assistant with its skills for each individual type of conversational channel, right? We also provide the ability to. We also support voice interfaces like Alexa. We have several blogs of that on how you can go and enable that. Enable voice for your digital assistant. Yeah. Of course, we also have a skill store. So if your company or you're already making use of some of our other Oracle products like PeopleSoft, or like PeopleSoft in this case, right? Then or EPM, right? So here are pre-built skills, right, that you can use as a starting point to, or as is, right, to enable your digital assistant in those applications. There are also a lot of other examples, right? So the finance example, for example, that I just show is also there. You can just go and import it into your environment, right? Of course, there are different settings and the analytics, right? So please do explore. I think I've already 3 minutes over the time that we have together. Again, for those that stay on, thank you for attending to this. And hopefully, this session was very helpful and useful for you and give you ideas on how OCI will be able to help you innovate with the platform approach. Now, today we talked about digital assistant, revisit our previous sessions, right, where we talk about how local application development could, help you to innovate, your applications, and also, cloud native development. What are the different services that we provide there as one platform, right? And again, thank you again for tuning in, and please do continue. And I wish you a great day.
Thank you, everyone.